Hey everyone, glad to see everyone here again this morning. I'm Brian Christian with Father of Glory Global Ministries, and we're really excited to have Barbara, who's swatting some flies right now, and but I'm really excited about what we're gonna talk about today. Unfortunately, I couldn't go on all three platforms because the internet where I'm at is not very good. So I'm having to manually share it to one of my Facebooks. But you can view this live on YouTube and both of my Facebook platforms. Barbara, how are you this morning? It looks like your mic is off. So I'll give you a second to get that mic going. I'm going to unmute you from here. I think I can. Nope, can't unmute you. You gotta do it yourself. So you're muted right now. I'll just keep talking. We've been having some technical difficulties this morning. We don't know if it's technology or whatever, but either way, I'm really excited to be talking about ministry this morning. There she is. How you doing?
Good. A little bit more of technical difficulties.
Yeah. Well, you had to go to your phone instead of your laptop, which is definitely harder. I can't stand doing Facebook Lives from my phone. It's just real grainy and it's not very good quality. But I'm excited. I'm not usually up this early doing lives, but I'm making myself get up early, and early bird gets the worm, right? Well, real quick before we
Amen.
get started, if you haven't gotten my book yet, you can go to Amazon. It's called The Everlasting Gospel of Christ, and it's identity from an eternal perspective. I haven't really advertised my book in a while, so encourage you, if you haven't got it, get it. It's just a basic, simple overview of the intentions of God and why we're here and why we suffer and why we go through what we go through and the purpose of all that from an eternal perspective. So go to Amazon and pick it up. You can get it on Kindle or soft cover. So today we're going to be talking about the journey into ministry, and obviously we know that ministry, the definition for ministry, has been changing. Let me just adjust my chair a little bit here. We know that it has the definition has changed. So when we talk about ministry, and I'll give the general thing, we're going to be going in a specific direction this morning on ministry, and so we are going to be going towards more of what people have known as full-time ministry, in the sense of somebody that's sent as a profession to lead and to serve and to help stir up and to found and to ground spirituality, spiritual community, churches, whatever, however you want to put it. And I'm one of those that lives by faith. You're one of those that lives by faith in this. Now, again, this does not reduce ministry to only the elite few that are going this direction. Now, again, this does not reduce ministry. There we go. And so what it does is this is just one side of ministry. So the other side is, well, being you everywhere you go and loving people is ministry. Okay, so that's the gist of it. We're all in the ministry. Okay, the ministry is simply family interaction, being who you truly are, loving one another, giving of yourself to one another. That's really what ministry is. And so ministry was never meant to be this kind of legalistic political empire in which a few elite ones hear from God and lead everybody else. That's not ministry. But we still have those that are traveling or ministering online, and that's what they're called to do. They've taken their lives, put it aside for the benefit of others in that area. And so, hey, Sherry, good to see you. Danielle, Nicole, Norlene, bless you guys and bless all those that have joined us. And so we're going to be looking at areas of ministry. And I actually did a post on this And so let me kind of go look at this real quick here, because I put a list of stuff that we're going to talk about today. And I know I've gone through some of this list, and I don't know if we'll get through all of it, but we're going to do our best. And obviously, people, if you have any questions that go along with what we're talking about, something we might not hit on, please feel free to comment and let us know. Maybe you had an experience like that. Okay. And so we're going to be looking at different aspects, like comparing, how we compare, comparing our ministry to others. What does successful ministry look like? And I think successful ministry is the big one. That's the big one. We're going to be looking at cultivating your vision, seasons of ministry that unlock your calling. You can be doing ministry for years and haven't even yet entered the calling of what you're actually called to manifest, because you're being adjusted. There's all kinds of things happening. Your whole theme, your identity is coming into focus. And many a times when we all start out in ministry, we don't know who the heck we are most of the time. I mean, let's just be honest. Bible school does not train you. We're going to be looking at where we begin to lose inspiration and direction, where we deal with spiritual burnouts, and also not falling prey to those who want to control your ministry. This is a big one, because when you're out on your own, you don't want to be prideful. You want to be teachable, and it's easy to get sucked into another minister's manipulation, where they want to come and father you or bring you subject to them, or you're not mature enough yet. And, and there is a place where, hey, if you're a numbskull and you're out there and you're half cocked and you're just like you got devastation all over in your life, and you're trying to go out there and preach life to others and it's backfiring. Well, it might be time for you to sit down for a minute and get some restoration. And I get that. But I think we come to a place in our journey where, if I'm stable in who I am, and I'm consistent in my life to the best of my ability, I shouldn't have to sit on the sidelines and wait for some perfect outward appearance before I'm qualified to be used of God, or to lead something. And so these are things that are, I think, pitfalls and different areas that I've walked through, and I'm sure you're currently going through as well, Barbara. And so let's kind of look at some of these things and see where we go from here. So let's look at the first one here. What does successful ministry look like? And do you want to start this one out, or do you want me to start this one out, Barbara?
I can.
Go for it. Why don't you share? What does that look like when you think about what is successful ministry? Tell us, what does that look like?
Right. I believe this question starts even like with the definition of what actually ministry is. And I believe we shifted from doing something into being the ministry, being the embodiment of ministry. So when we look at the ministry as that we are ministry, that we are the embodiment of the ministry, then everything that is happening in our life can be an asset that we are able to use in the ministry or in helping to others. So to me, ministry is no more about doing something, but being someone, and especially being yourself, being who you truly are in your authentic design, the way how you have been created to be. And I believe that it's a very good question to the Father, to ask him, what do you think that is successful ministry? Or what do you think, Father, that the success is in this season right now? Because I believe that even when it comes to success, it might look like differently in a previous season versus in a season like right now. For example, what comes to my mind is for the area of finances. Maybe you remember the woman who gave just everything that she had, and it was just like one coin or something. And it was in the eyes of people, it was
Yeah.
so little in her season, but Jesus saw how much it meant to her, how much she actually gave. But maybe you go to another season with your finances and you are able to, you know, or make some money, make more money, and then God can ask you to give more. And while success looked differently in a previous season of giving a little, now you might be asked to give more, and it can totally look differently. So to me, it's success goes down to identity, or who we are in the Father when it comes to sonship. And sonship is doing what we see the Father currently doing and saying what we hear the Father currently saying.
Oh, that's the best definition I've ever heard. It all comes down to being and not doing. Now, of course, we do the work of the ministry, but from a place of being. We're not striving to do it to gain something. We're flowing out of a place of identity, flowing out of a place of over. We're coming from a place of overflow, not need. And no, that's beautiful. I also think that a lot of times what we fall into is we fall into comparing. Um, you know, we get excited. God's given us a vision. We start out, we're like, okay, we're going to establish this. And usually when we're stirred to do it, there's a few people that have come around encouraging us. We're usually not on our own. There's usually a stirring that comes, a group of people that comes around us that begins to recognize, wow, we really see what the Father's doing in you. Yeah, we really want to be a part of what you're carrying. And so you start out that journey. But the expectation many a times is, well, we're looking for how to do this. So we look for examples. So we automatically are looking at other ministries and saying, well, this ministry over here, they just got started and they're already got 10,000 people, And so we look at the numbers, and we look at miracles. And if there's all these signs that are the proof, that, that it's a really anointed ministry. And so when we start out and we have that group of people around us, we're like, this is it. But then like 3 months down the line, I don't know if you've had this happen, but I've had it happen. Everybody disappears. And you're going, okay, everybody went away. And there wouldn't even necessarily have been an argument or a disagreement. It's just everybody moved on. And you start to question, and then you start to compare. Well, how come this guy over here, he's been doing the ministry for 25 years and he's been consistent, but me, I'm doing ministry for 3 months, and then it's dry for 3 months, and then I'm back in ministry for a few weeks, and then I'm going through it again. And so we've got to understand that just because we stepped into ministry doesn't mean we've actually stepped into our actual calling yet. We go through seasons of ministry that are actually preparing you for the call, where those seasons are stripping away aspects of false expectation and presumption and these kinds of things that are going on in our lives. I know what motivated me to step into the ministry in the beginning. I love God. I wanted to help people, but there was still a part of me that still needed to prove I was good enough. And so a lot of people, when they step in, they usually step in a little bit early to heal themselves by healing others. And there is an aspect that's true there, but it is dysfunctional. Now, thankfully, there's grace, and the Father knows that He knows what hook to get you going on a journey of deconstructing your own mindset, to removing those things that are the hidden agendas. So he will use ministry to crucify that. And that's what He did with me, And so it is kind of a crazy thing. And so I totally believe everything you just said for the being side of it. But also, when we're looking at being successful, many a times we will look at somebody else and we'll look at how everybody going to their meetings. Everybody's saying, oh, my life has been changed. And we might only have a few, and maybe we're not seeing the fruit. And so in that place, what do we end up doing? We end up getting discouraged. We end up thinking, well, maybe I'm not called. And then it kind of takes us into some of these other aspects that we're going to talk about. And that is, we can lose inspiration and direction, right? When you're dealing with ministry success, the success is first and foremost simply being. It's not about doing to obtain. It's about being. It's about fellowship. It's about interaction. But it's also about going after the one. This is something that the Father really spoke to us, was going after the one. Instead of looking for the crowd. See, you don't have to have 10,000 people to have a successful ministry. What you need is one person that's in one accord with you. That's all you need. Where two shall agree, it shall be done. And so I think when we are willing to go after the one and give up the need for the Hollywood version of Christianity, and really go after, get out of the sensationalism and just be willing to love the one. When we launched out, God said, I'm sending you all over the nation. I said, okay, God, where do we start? And he says, I want you to go to Washington, and I want you to go park your RV in front of a single mother's house, and she's disconnected from everybody. And I want you to fix her fence. I want you to minister to her kids. That was the initial call. And so we went there and we're like, okay, God, we're running out of money. We're sitting here. We don't have anything coming in, and so we just sat there and we just gave it to God, and we just drank together in the Spirit. We just sat and we were just in his glory and revelating and just in the glory. And the glory started to fill the RV. And within a couple of weeks, the glory started going down the streets and into the Walmart, and there's this atmosphere. And next thing you know, there was a move of God that broke out over that whole region. And then we launched from there, and the doors opened everywhere. But it was going after the one. It was really about family. So we'd driven, thousands of miles, to go for one person. And we've done that. And we've ministered to the one, we've loved the one, and guess what happens? The fruit is so amazing that their family hears about it, and then their family tells their friends. And I mean, we've gone to places where we didn't even have one, where God said, I want you to go to this city, and we drive there and we park in a parking lot. And we go, now what, God? And he says, just wait. So we'll just kick back, relax, maybe watch a movie, just wait. And next thing you know, I'm getting a text or a phone call, and it's somebody saying, hey, I've got this friend I'd really like you to minister to. Where are you at? Oh, you happen to be in the same city they're in. Well, that's interesting. And you end up ministering to them, and that person ends up knowing 5 or 6 others. The next thing you know, the region opens up, and all these people are brought together. It's not about bringing them to you. It's about connecting them together. And that's been the heart of what we've been doing, is finding the ones that don't believe they have any friends or family, and connecting them with others who are going through the same thing. And that is an amazing thing. That is an amazing thing. So what do you think about when we're talking about when we're in ministry and we start to lose our inspiration and direction? What are some ways, Barbara, that you think we can kind of come up out of that? I mean, how do we if we start to feel discouraged because nobody really is receiving what we're carrying, maybe we just started out, or maybe we're in one of those seasons where everything was so successful and glorious, and then it looks like it was a trick, and that all of a sudden, like, we missed it and we're losing our inspiration, we're losing direction. We don't know what to do about it. What advice would you give when you're in that place?
Right on. What came on my mind is what Graham Cook once said about two different types of seasons, and one is hiddenness, and the another one is manifestation. So sometimes maybe it's good to start with discerning what is the season that you are in. Like, are you supposed to be out there, or are you supposed to be kind of in a hidden place, and where Father is maybe emphasizing your heart and to rest and to allow your roots to grow deeper. So it's not actually, a reason or a sign that there is something wrong with you, but this season of hiddenness is actually preparing you for the age to come, for what is about to happen next in your life or in the next phase of your ministry. And I believe, like, sometimes this dissatisfaction, or when we feel like we don't feel the flow, we don't know what is the next, the word that we are supposed to release. I think that sometimes it might be coming from a place of being addicted, or to an expectation that we are supposed to be releasing a new word all the time. And if we don't keep up to this track or to this flow, like, we start to think that there is something wrong with us. But sometimes the season is not changing. And how about to stick with the last word that the Father has told you? And there is nothing wrong about that. So sometimes the Rema word is not to get a new word, but to stick with the last word that you heard the Father saying. Or
Yes.
another thing that comes to my mind is, if you would like to stay in a flow, once the Father gave me this picture of a river. And when we imagine a river, it has two sides. One side that the water flows in, and then other side that water flows out. So one practical way of how to stay in the flow is actually to be receiving, and to just open our mouth. And as the scripture says, open your mouth and I will fill it with my words, right? So I remember one conversation that I had with Brian, and he would encourage me, like, sometimes it takes just to step out and to open your mouth and to just flow, because he would tell me, even I don't know, like, sometimes, like, what to say, but it's about just staying available. Like, it's God's obligation, or it's God's thing to give us the word, but our thing to just make ourselves available to hear or to listen or to open our mouth, or to type, to let it just flow, and for us to flow with Him.
That's beautiful. It brings to my mind times where, you know, I think a lot of times when people receive our ministry, that they think because we're up there and we look totally excited and we're on fire in that moment and the glory's moving, that we just have been longing to get up and flow. But there are plenty of times that I feel nothing, I have nothing, and I don't want to do any of it. I'm just, saying, oh, why did I agree to do this? This morning I was a little excited because, we get to do this, and I always feel comfortable and excited when you and I, Barbara, can minister together, because it just feels like home. It feels like we're just sitting having a great conversation. But sometimes when you're getting in front of people, especially a bunch of people you've never met, and you're in a new area, and you don't know what they're expecting, and they really don't know what they're getting into by inviting me. you know, that's why I always say, when pastors call me up and they're denominational churches, I'll say, you do know what I preach, right? You do know what I do, right? Well, yeah, yeah. Okay. I just want to make sure, I don't want to surprise you too much. But there are plenty of times I don't have anything. I got nothing. And that used to scare me, until I realized that I'm standing up with a clean slate. And that clean slate means I'm in a now moment dealing with now situations. And so all I have to do is just start flowing, and it will usually take me 5 minutes of just rambling to empty out. And then once I empty out, I start to discern the mindsets in the room, and I just start to answer people's hearts and mindsets by the Spirit. And sometimes it's a nice teaching that goes from one side to the other in direction, and other times it's a rabbit trail all over the place, smorgasbord, And afterwards, I'm like, man, I didn't even finish my sentence on anything, but it ministered to where the people were at. And so we do have those moments, and I know for me, I have that as well. But when I look at losing inspiration and direction, like I totally agree with what your side of that, what your definition of that is. But how do we get it back? And I think a lot of times when we start to lose inspiration, it's usually because we've judged something that wasn't our business to judge. We're again usually comparing, and we've forgotten the initial invitation. It's always good to go back to when the Father spoke. What did he say? Go back and relive the moment of the commissioning. Look at that season of what the Father was emphasizing. Otherwise, it's easy to get discouraged if we don't always see instant outward fruit. And let me just say, instant outward fruit is not the regular thing. I'm just going to tell you that. And to be perfectly honest, most of the time when it is instant outward fruit, it doesn't remain. And you remember the seed that fell by on the stony ground, right? It says that immediately when the people heard the word, they rejoiced. So that's instant fruit, but they had no root. So when the times of testing came, they were offended and fell away. Anything that springs up quickly will fade away quickly. All right. And we've seen that with revivals. All right. 2 years, every revival that I've walked in, because at one point I called myself a revivalist because that was the thing that you did in that day. And well, wherever I'd go, I'd break open stuff. Right. And there'd just be these realms, and people would be drawn from all over without advertisement. And it was definitely supernatural, but it would be short-lived. Anywhere from 3 months to 2 years would be the maximum of that move. And at the end of it, it would be as though nothing had happened. Everybody go their way. I don't know what happened to them, but there wasn't really a lot of lasting fruit. There's a lot of manifestations. Everybody enjoyed it while they were in it, but it didn't impact a generation. It didn't impact the nation. It didn't continue to build anything. And so I would walk away totally dissatisfied, going, what was the point of that, God? But he was leading us to something greater, in which we're now starting to step in. And so whenever you lose your inspiration, get around other people that, well, for one thing, stay with your core. There's a core of people that the Father has for you. So don't ever think that you're going to go out and do ministry just you and God. It ain't going to happen. You're going to burn out. It's going to be short-lived. You're going to get discouraged. You're going to end up beating up the sheep and being angry at them for not listening, for not receiving, for not doing what you're saying, because you'll end up getting into that micromanaging mode rather than being a shepherd who lays his or her life down for the flock. And so, when you're in that place of losing inspiration, the best thing to do is to get around people who inspire you. Lean upon those who believe in you. If you have a few people that believe in you, those are the ones that are going to help you remember who you are when everything outward doesn't look like it's going as planned, and go back to when you started. Go back in your mind to, okay, this is what the Father initially said. This was the season he presented, and get that bird's eye view of the whole scenario and allow yourself to remember the reason you stepped in. Not just that you were called to bring miracles, signs, and wonders, or called to prophesy, but you were called to love and be loved. and what's the heart of the matter here? And so that really helps as well. All right. So another thing this kind of goes with is cultivating your vision with other ministries. I think this is really important to other ministries that believe very similarly that you believe, or ministries that complement your ministry. So, like, there isn't a ministry out there that has it all. I don't have it all. I don't minister to every situation. I have a specific theme and calling, and every part does its share. But we definitely need to connect with other ministries. I like to call. I like when people call me and they say, "Hey, Brian, do you specialize in this ministry?" I say, "Well, no, not really, but I have a ministry I'm connected with that I can refer you to." And so you're constantly, referring to one another and allowing every part to come in and do the work. We're connected with Daniel Thornis and Daniel Oskopinski and their ministries as well. And there was a couple that were living not too far in Texas from them, and the husband had lost his job. There was supposed to be a contract. It was supposed to be great. They had never been around the storms and the tornadoes. They were just going through it. And so I call up Daniel and I said, "You got any room in your, where you're at? Can you take them in?" And he says, yeah, we'll make room. And so I connected them both. Our ministry kind of helped to finance some room and board. Room and board was provided through Daniel Thornis and his family. And, and so everything came together. Now, we might not be able to feed the whole world right now, but I think many a times we're afraid that if we can't do it all, we won't do any of it. But if we just start with the one, just go to the one you can bless, that you can help, you can refer to another, But so when you think about cultivating your vision with other ministries, what does that look like for you, Barbara? How would you define that in your journey?
So what came to my mind, like, for example, I'm from Slovakia, from a Central Europe, where we have a platform where leaders from all around the nation gather and walk together and seek the Father together for one another. So we are like seeking to be encouraging one another and to be recognizing what the Father has to say, or to encourage another ministry with another emphasis, with a different emphasis, but also like standing together for what is the Father doing within the nation. So I really love what you said sooner about moving kind of in the area of our promise or in our calling as a family, because I also believe that we can't fulfill or step into our destinies or our callings outside of family. We remember that even the tribes of Israel were moving together to the promised land as tribes. And I believe that each and every one of us needs such tribe of like-minded people with a common vision, or with something in common that we can share and that we can embody, not just as individuals, but also as families of God, to move together where the Father has appointed us to go or to get. So
Wow.
that's to me like leaning or gleaning like from one another and being there for one another and listening what the Father has for another, and not only for ourselves, but being that support, being that brother or sister in Christ, or mother or father, to see others to be successful, not only seeking our success or how can we be thriving, but also seeking how my brother or sister or mother or father who are having a ministry, how they can succeed, or how we can support them and bless them also.
So that's beautiful. And you and I, our ministries are connected as well. And now when you're dealing with now this is probably one of the hard ones. Now we haven't gotten to spiritual burnout yet. We have a
Mhm.
lot here, so we're just covering a little bit on each one of these. But we can have a season. You can have spiritual burnout on two sides. And really, there's no such thing as your spirit burning out. It's your mindset burning out, but we call it spiritual burnout. And many a times, it can actually happen during high successful times where you've got so much ministry going on. You're trying to meet every need rather than allowing some of these other tribes to help too. I think that this comes in as well with not trying to take everything on yourself. You know, it can become very actually codependent to do that. And you really, you know, it kind of shows how needy we are or needing to be loved when we're overdoing it. I know for me, um, the longer I'm in this ministry, the less I work. The less I work. I'm finding that back in the day of doing the 14-hour, you know, meetings every day because you know the those extended meetings, you know, and it was glorious in its time, you know, and you end up bedridden for a few months after you're done. You know, totally destroy your whole endocrine system by all those espresso shots at Starbucks just to keep going. Uh, uh, but um, but you know we can have that spiritual burnout that way. We can also have it under false expectations of what we thought it was going to look like, kind of what we started out with. And so it can be, well, God, I thought you were going to do that, and we're pushing and pushing to try to make it happen, and nobody's wanting to hear it, or you know the water's not stirring. But then the flip side of that is lots and lots of ministry, and we're just going 24/7, and we've missed the whole point of family. And then what ends up happening is with the spiritual burnout, before you end up in spiritual burnout, you go on automatic pilot. Automatic pilots comes in before you go on into spiritual burnout. And you just check out and you're just going through the motions and you're just, okay, I just need to get through this. And I did that with signs, miracles, and wonders. I mean, you know, raising the dead. I mean, and was in spiritual burnout with all these manifestations and these long extended meetings that I used to do back in the day. And what I'm seeing now is God's doing the same thing in 2 hours or an hour of what he would do in 16. And I'm not having to try to get anywhere, to press in and get God to move. I'm not pursuing God as though he's deaf or distant to move on my behalf. I'm not moving from a place of lack that creates that spiritual burnout, but moving from a place of knowing that we're complete and we can just flow and we're not here to impress the people. I think that's a big one is I don't need to impress the people and I don't need to prove to the people that God called me or that I'm really from God. Let me tell you and show you, you know, I don't think we have to do any of that crap. So, how would you define spiritual burnout in your own life and ministry? And have you experienced that at all thus far?
Yeah, it happens to me, I think multiple times, but one big I experienced a few years ago, maybe like 5 years ago. And at the end of that, I'm telling you, like, I didn't want to have with ministry anything anymore. And I really needed lots of love of the Father and from people for me to be resurrected kind of back on the road. But I didn't realize that I was on the road all the time, even when it happened, the burnout, because it needed to happen. I just had those mindsets that I wasn't aware of, and burned out actually helped me, if I can say it that way, to realize who I am not, or
Yeah.
what the Father hasn't designed for me to walk in, or the way how to do it, how to do the ministry. Because in that season, my identity was so wrapped around ministry, and especially like the gift of music, or I used to be a worship leader. And because my worth or my value was so wrapped around this musical gift, or being a worship leader, now people started to mirror that mindset back to me, and relating to me only through that gift. And I tried to keep up to their expectations and to how much I can help or do. We were kind of experiencing days of revival here in Slovakia, doing the David stand, like 24/7, prayer and worship. And I felt like, oh, if God is just pouring out, like I just need to keep going and do whatever that is necessary to get done. And I was just doing and doing and doing and doing it until I realized that I am not able to say no to leaders. I'm not able to say no because I was afraid that if I would let it go, suddenly my life, without ministering, without worshiping God, without sacrificing, would have no sense, would have no value. So I didn't want to stop it. So I was rather people pleasing and saying yes to leaders all the time, and they were loving me because they enjoyed hearing yes all the time, and of course I will do that. And I believe that from the position of leaders, that's what we love to hear, like who would say no. uh,
Yeah.
we enjoy, we love people who are willing to help, and we are very thankful for those who have that willingness of heart. But I believe that that's also our job as ministers, to really recognize what the person needs, not only what we need or what our kingdoms need, but recognizing also where is the person in front of us, what is the season that they are in. Because I believe that even ministry is not about building big ministries, but unveil or help to unveil the bigness inside of people in front of us. And that can sometimes really look like differently than what we are carrying or what we are going through. Maybe we are in that season of being able to perform or being able to be productive. But what if the person that was entrusted to our care is not in that season? Are we going to drag this person to perform and to work and to do the works of the ministry? Or are we going to recognize that actually this person needs some rest or needs the affirmation of the Father, or to focus on her or his identity? So to me, I needed to burn out as you said, that mindset of people pleasing, or looking at myself, or seeing myself or my value only through that lens of gift of worship, or this musical gift. And then the Father needed even to take me out of my nation, out of that context, because I was so addicted to this. I wasn't able to say no at all. So sometimes the way how the Father heals us from burnout is that he takes us from this context, from this background, so he can take us to a different background where we actually can come back to our senses, where we can realize what was going on and to catch up our breath, and to think about how are we gonna live in the next season. And that's unveiling, I believe, that is happening in those points of the journey. And I was very thankful that the Father helped me to go through that. I remember he took me to England, from Slovakia to England, and I was working in a secular job. But the way how the Father was ministering to my heart in that season was so precious, because he would surround me with all these people from just secular world. I was working at cafeteria, pizzeria, and they would come to me, my coworkers, multiple times per day, and they just ask me, hey, how are you doing? Hey, can we go? Would you like to go for a walk or for a coffee? And I knew they had no idea about spirituality. They had no idea about, spiritual gifts and callings and stuff like that. So they weren't relating to me through that giftings, callings, or what they can gain from, or how they can benefit from having a relationship with me, but they were there just for me. And I really felt like the Father was truly ministering to my identity or to my heart, exactly through these people. And I believe they are nothing less than the church people. They were beautiful, and I could see and recognize the Father inside of them in that season.
See, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. Well, let's move on to the next one here, so we don't run out of time. We're going to kind of sum up the rest of this here, but before we look into the seasons of ministry that unlock the calling, which we're going to kind of look at how we move through the honeymoon phase and the resistance and the trigger season and all of that, is what do we do when it comes to not falling prey to those who want to control our ministry? And I think this one is really tough, because if you don't have the few in your life that you can unload on, you might go and try to be vulnerable with another ministry that might still be religious and controlling in the way in which they perceive, ministry. And it's easy because, you have mega church ministries, you have the big name ministries, the mainstream stuff. And the mainstream right now believes they got it all, that they're the ones that should be leading everything, that they're the ones that know more than everybody else. They're the authority because they have all the numbers, they have the money, they have the influence. And so if you have if your ministry is smaller than theirs, or what have you, and you happen to be around them for a period of time, and I've had this happen with just about every one of them. They think that all of a sudden that you're in their life, or that they're supposed to be fathering you, that they're supposed to be leading you, and that if you have any issues in your life, you need to lay down your ministry, take up their ministry, preach what they're preaching, follow them, carry their water bottle, carry their Bible, do the whole servanthood submission thing to be worthy of being used of God and having your own ministry. And if you sit under my ministry for 10 years, then, because I did it with this person, I submitted to this person. And here's my thing. If you submitted for that long and you're still doing it, you're probably submitted to the wrong person, because you can't preach sonship and act like an orphan and try to bring people's subject out of control. And I've seen this over and over and over again. It's happened to me multiple times. And especially if you're in a vulnerable season and you're like, you had this expectation that God was going to do something, you start to question whether you heard from God. Maybe you're deceived. Maybe you are deceived, and so, we don't want to be prideful. So we consider, well, maybe I am deceived. And maybe this guy, maybe God sent this person to help me, and I just need to submit and lay aside, everything that the Father has commissioned me in, because it just doesn't seem to be working out. And I've been there multiple times. I've laid my ministry down multiple times, and I believe the Father at times had me do that. I'm not going to say it was all control. He told me several different times, I want you to lay your ministry down and go and submit to the local pastor. And I did that over and over again. Now, what was he teaching me? He really wasn't teaching me submission to the pastor. I thought that's what it was. He was teaching me to let go of my need to be in control of my life. And once I was through with that, then, then God never required that of me again. But it was some tough times, because, Claudia Marie knows what I'm talking about there. And so it's a thing that we fall into, that everybody wants to be the sheriff in town, and they want to come and tell you how it should be done. And you just need to come and do it my way. And, and they'll promise you, they'll promise you position. They'll promise you clout. They'll promise you, plenty of ministry, as long as you don't have your own personality and you only adopt their cloning process. Now, many of them aren't aware that they're doing that. They're doing it out of their own blindedness and ignorance, But so what do you think about that?
Yeah, once I heard that if you won't have your own vision, somebody else will have it for you. So I believe that not, in order not to end up like a prey of a controlling leader, it's again going back to knowing who we are, knowing the Father's intentions for our personal lives or even our callings, and feeling comfortable or feeling good in your own skin, like embracing like who you are is exactly what it needs to look like, and you don't need to compare yourself with others in order to be enough, in order to be a legitimate daughter or legitimate son. And because again, what is the sonship is doing what you see the father doing. And if you are following what the father has told you, even if it looks like differently than somebody else's ministry or expression, you are totally fine. You are righteous. You are, you are justified, and that's all that is required of you. And that's
That's right.
you can just be yourself and do you. And I feel like there is lots of freedom in that. And what comes to my mind is John the Baptist. I believe that sometimes we allow church cultures or the cultures that we grew up in to define who we are, or how it is supposed to look like what we are doing, or how ministry should look like, or how fruit should look like. And because like for example me, I grew up in a church culture, so when we used to listen to testimonies, right? Like when we look back and actually think about what kind of testimonies we used to hear at church, most of the time we would put so much emphasis on like if someone was healed, or if someone was I don't know, delivered, or if someone was financially blessed, like we would be hearing these testimonies all the time. But how about uh, I got wisdom that helped me at school, or
Yeah.
I was strengthened by the love of the family that the father surrounded me with. And I think that it's nothing less than all these other expressions, but because they're so used to, and they're so programmed to just celebrate these kind of miracles and testimonies, then we are not able to recognize another expressions, and then we judge according to outward appearance. But if we would look, for example, on the life of John the Baptist, like he had never done any kind of miracle, sign or wonder, and he was baptizing people. But Jesus saw the greatness in him, and he saw how wonderful he was because he was just himself. And I think that this is the invitation from the Father, even for us, even in this season, to be discerning according to the Spirit and not in the flesh, to recognize the Father in other people's lives, expressions. And I believe that if we recognize it in ourselves, if we are comfortable in our own skin, it's much more easy for us to recognize other people's uniqueness because we already embraced ours.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Now we had a question here that Danielle Wellman had, and she says, "I would love to hear how you both became aware of your personal individual vision for ministry." And so I thought, well, that might be a whole program in and of itself, but I think we could give a quick overview of that, and I'll just leave that up there for just a minute. So when I think about how I became aware of my own personal ministry, well, I went to a church. I saw the man of God moving in miracles, signs, and wonders. There was a part of me that said, "Wow, I wish I could do that." But I used to be a stutterer. I would not get in front of people. I was like a deer in the headlights, did not like to be in public light. And so it took God speaking to me. So I initially had a calling where God said, "I've called you," Jeremiah 1:5, "before I formed in the womb, I called you as a prophet to the nations." Now, I didn't know what a prophet was. All I had was the outward 80s version of what a prophet was on the platform. And so a part of me, I caught that yes, I want to be used of God, but it was still coming. And initially it was coming out of a need to be loved. I'll be perfectly honest. And I had no idea what I was getting into, but there was a strong desire that I was supposed to be doing what this guy on the platform was doing, but I didn't know who I was. And so literally, I started, ministry as in full time by faith at 17 and a half years of age. I was, emancipated at 15, and it started with street ministry, and then I started pastoring by the time I was 19. And I pretty much ruined everything I put my hands to. I destroyed the first several ministries I started, I destroyed, because I had no idea what I was doing. And in fact, everything I thought I was called to preach when I was called wasn't anything I was called to preach. So I stumbled in, blindfolded like an ignorant fool, thinking I knew what I was doing and what I even was called to. And now the God had given me a hint. He said, you're called to be a father to many, you're called to restore marriages, and you're called to bring unity. Now, for the next 17 years, I was accused of being divisive. Every intimate relationship I had failed, and every spiritual son or daughter betrayed me. Okay. And so I experienced the opposite of that, you know, but what's kind of crazy is that, looking back, I really realized that I was walking through everybody I would be sent to. I was walking through those mindsets. So, if you're going to be a revelation of the Father's affirmation, you're going to walk as an orphan first, period. Because you cannot be a revelation of the Father's affirmation to an orphan if you've never experienced being an orphan. Okay. And so, so for me, uh, it started out with the supernatural. I was drawn by the supernatural and the prophetic and the desire to be loved. And over the first 20 years was me coming into my vision. And so I would say on my 20th year is when, and this would have been back in 2007, where I was pastoring a church in San Jose, California, Pillar of Fire Church, and it had touched the entire Silicon Valley, and other nations were coming, and it was a pretty big deal, and it was in a house that we ripped the back of the house off, and we built a house onto that to fit the people, because there was no place you could go in San Jose. All the churches had 2 and 3 churches going on in each one. So we literally just built onto the house, and they came from other nations. They came from all over, and it was amazing, a lot of the supernatural. But that is where the epiphany began to hit me. I'm called to manifest something more. And that's where the Father spoke to me and said, son, you're a grace bearer. I've called you to be a revelation of grace. And that thus began the unveiling of all my neediness from the previous years, all the regret of failing in ministry, all the past stuff that I believed I'd done in vain and I'm going to do better now. All of that was dealt with in 2007 and 2008, right around that time, where the Father brought my whole history to me. And he said, son, I don't regret your journey. Why do you? You're a grace bearer, and everything you've walked through has prepared you for this moment to be a revelation of grace. And that's when I began to relax. Now, right after that, my whole ministry was destroyed. I had leaders that wanted to take over. They had their own agenda, and they tried to take the church from me. And we fought tooth and nail, and it ended up being split, and I ended up closing it down. That's when I married Shauna, and we took off to Texas. And then and for the next 10 years of ministry, I was kept really small, real small. Like God wouldn't let me grow over 20 people. And it was just pretty much behind closed doors. I was hidden. I did some online stuff, but I was hidden. And then we launched. And I told God when I married Shauna, I said, God, don't put me out in the public again until I can stand. Hide me. And I forgot about that. And so, 6 months later, and there's a move of God breaking out, but it was very small, and it only lasted 3 months. And then we launched back out to California from Texas, and we planted a church that wouldn't grow over 20 people, and it was pretty hidden. Um, and then I did my jail ministry. Not long after that, I kind of went, I was, God, why isn't this thing growing? I totally forgot. So when he began to bring me back out to the public and break it open all over, he reminded me, says, your 10 years is up. And it was 10 years to the day that I made that covenant with God. And that was in 2018, June 29th, 2018. All right. And we launched and it opened all over. But ultimately for me, my awareness and individual vision started out with my own brokenness needing to be healed. And God using that as a beautiful journey to reach out to other ministers who are going through the same thing. And to just encourage people and to know I was alone. Nobody believed in me. I had nobody that mentored me. I had nobody that believed in me. You'd have the random prophet come in and prophesy. But that was it. And then, right in front of the pastor. So afterwards, you have to go to the pastor. All right, pastor, this prophet said, I'm ready to get to work. Sit down. You're not ready. You're not good enough, whatever. And so I'd sit on the pew, and I could only do it for a few months before I'd say, you know what? I'm the rebel. I was always in the principal's office. I'm out of here. And I'd go out and I'd start my own ministry. And I'd do it, and it would flourish and flow, and then it would flounder and would just die. And you know what would come to my mind? What that pastor said. You're in rebellion. You didn't submit. And now I'm looking at God's judgment because I didn't obey the pastor. All that mind control would come back. And so then I'd go back and I'd submit again because obviously I missed God, but it wouldn't be long, couple months, and I'd be up and gone again. And I'd be, and I'd have to keep changing churches because the pastors wouldn't want me back after that. Right. So I had exhausted all the churches in the entire region of Sacramento, California, and then they all got together and they said, you're of the devil, you're handed over to Satan, and they threw me away. So then I could only go to Baptist churches and other denominations. And I found that the Baptist church was less suspicious of demons than the Assemblies of God. So, it's kind of a trip. So it's been a long journey for me in this. What about you? How did you become aware of your personal individual ministry there?
I think I'm still not there. And that can be also a freedom message because I think that sometimes we have this need to arrive or to conclude on because we feel if we don't see the whole picture, we can't step into the ministry. But once I remember someone encouraged me, hey, how about you just step into the boat and push it from the shore, and then the waves of the spirit are gonna lead you. And sometimes it feels so scary because all that you see is just broad and wide ocean and no arrival, no destination in front of you. But what if that's what the Father wants from you, to be led by the Spirit, to be dependent on Him? And it's actually beautiful because I believe that that's the part of what we all are called to. Is it is a journey. That journey is the destination, and people that we are walking on that journey. So another thing that really helped me, like firstly, like I in the beginnings of my walk with the Father, firstly I learned how to read the Bible, and then when I got to know Brian would teach me how to read my somebody calling me. And that really helped me because I also realized like that some of the pitfalls. Pardon.
Did you get frozen there?
Me.
Yeah, you got to mute.
So some of the
mute those calls. Yeah, those are hard ones.
I changed. I lost the connection.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Try it again. I can hear you just fine. I could hear you.
Okay, can you hear me like this?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
So I was saying that about reading your life, right? So
Mm-hmm.
actually, once I heard that some of the that your ministry is going to burst out of the greatest areas of your pain. So if you remember when Jesus was pierced, and there is written about Jesus that in his hands, in his wounds, we are healed. I also believe that in our wounds, people are receiving healing, because what we have plowed through, what we have been, going through blindfolded in our past, has prepared us for our ministry, because we were plowing different mindsets and gathering the keys that later on would help people to unlock them into who they are personally and into their own callings or destinies. So I believe also learning how to read our life as the letter that this world is reading can really help us to recognize some themes as the central message or a core message that we are called to carry in our life. Also, prophetic words. I remember one time Brian prophesied over me. I was still in a Bible college, and he would tell me, before you end up your Bible college, you are going to launch your own ministry. And I was like, what? Like, I have no idea what am I supposed to be doing. I don't know how it is supposed to be called. Shouldn't I have like a mission statement and then calling statement, or how the ministries usually have it described, all having in those little beautiful boxes. But then I realized when time came, I just became aware. Oh, I'm supposed to call it new perspective, because
Yes.
new perspective actually was a huge theme in my life of how the Father helped me to shift my mindsets and to really change my life, or to get out of a very big and deep troubles. So
Yeah.
actually his voice and his perspective changed my experience in life, and that's why I called the ministry that I'm doing a new perspective. But what I would like to tell you, like, sometimes the key is you don't need to know, and you will know when you will need to know. And until then, you can just rest and enjoy yourself, and God will do the rest.
Oh, that's so good. That's the best thing about it. You don't need to know until you need to know, And so it's I will say that for me, and I know we're running out of time here, but let me just give a real quick thing here on seasons of ministry. You're going to go through several seasons and seasons and seasons and seasons of all these different emphases of ministry, but it's just a season. It's not the theme, but it's leading to the theme of who you are. And I started out. My focus was fivefold ministry, the government, the anointing of the Holy Spirit, the gifts of the Spirit. That was what I thought I was called to minister. I don't minister on any of that now. you know I'm called to deliver the captives. I don't even do that anymore, not like I used to. I mean, I was a deliverance minister first. Everything. I used to teach spiritual warfare, end times. In fact, all the stuff that I taught for the first, I'd say, 15 years. Now eternity came in uh, uh, somewhere in the middle of that, but it was still mixed with a lot of other stuff. Like, I don't even teach half of the stuff I used to. I don't even believe in half the stuff I used to teach, and that's called progressive unveiling. That's called graduating. Okay. It doesn't mean you're schizophrenic or you're double minded. It just means you've been graduating out of the mindsets and you're coming into something fresh and new. But you're going to go through these different seasons, just like you do in a relationship, just like you do in your personal journey. You're going to have a honeymoon phase. You're going to have a honeymoon phase. A group of people are going to be drawn to you. They're going to say, God's calling you. We're called to be with you. We're here to be a support. It's going to be this great honeymoon. You're going to have an outpouring and proof through signs and miracles that this is it, and you're supposed to do it. And then after about 3 or 4 months, maybe 6 months, maybe even less. It just depends on the emphasis. You're going to end up having the next season come in, and the next season will be the trigger season. And all of a sudden, everybody's not agreeing with you anymore, and everybody's not seeing eye to eye anymore. And that's the trigger season. Now, most of the time, people scatter during the trigger season, at least the first 3 or 4 groups of people, because you'll keep cycling through this. You'll gather, you'll scatter, you'll gather, you'll scatter, until you realize that the trigger season is about the bonding together. Now, if you don't know it's the season to bond and to be vulnerable and to be real and to let go of religious facades at that moment, then people will leave you. You'll rebuke them in the name of Jesus and say you've touched God's anointed and now God's judgment is coming after you, and you'll write them off as not from God, and you'll go on your merry way justifying who you are in the Spirit. Okay. And eventually that goes away, and it's no longer about justifying anything. It's about dealing with the mindsets. And once you can come to a group of people where you're willing to stick it out through the triggers, they will become your foundation, and they will begin to reveal to you from within them your theme. Your theme comes in the interaction of those you're with, not because you went and got some personal thing from God and a commission from God, and I'm here to teach you. No, the people that you're with will teach you. They will teach you who you are and who you're not in some of these aspects. Okay. And you'll start to see a theme where you'll start to see specific types of people coming to you with the same specific issues. And it's something you have already walked through. Everything you're called to is what was your biggest deficit at one time. So wherever you were the weakest and the most broken, and what you avoided the most is feeling the most unqualified in your life, is what you will be the most qualified for by the time you're done, by the time you've entered the true theme and calling of your life. And so you're going to go through all of these different seasons in which you see God taking his time in slow growth, little by little, to major outpourings and supernatural manifestations and honeymoon phases, to triggers and contradictions and everything you're saying being twisted against you. Now, if you don't run from any of those things, you just stay in it as this is part of the preparation. This is part of unlocking my theme. Then you will benefit from all of it. You will grow through all of it. I know for me, I ran back and forth, and I would defend and protect and justify and explain myself and do all that stuff until I burned out and finally threw in the towel and said, you know what, God, I'm just going to receive everything is from your hand, and I'm going to let everything benefit me. And I'm still working on that. You know, I don't need any more. I don't need people to agree with me for me to agree with myself anymore. I don't need for everybody to get on my bandwagon in order to encourage myself and know that I'm called and to know that I'm doing what the Father wants me to do. But that took me quite a while. And there's something about the endurance of all this that you're still here at the end of the day. That when the storm came, you just can't stop being who you are in that direction of the calling and the commission. And something happens when you realize that the storm couldn't knock you out. That even though somebody talked you out of your calling for a moment, you came right back into that calling, and you get strengthened through that endurance. You get strengthened through consistency. And others notice that consistency. They really do. They notice that, wow, it's been, 7, 8 years, Brian's still doing what he's doing. I see the endurance. I see the consistency. It's been 10 years. It's been 15 years. And so there's a fruit that remains in our ability to endure, even when things are up and down and aren't going the way that we thought they should have, but I no longer have a need to put my vision in a conclusion of what I think it's supposed to look like. What it's supposed to look like is everything that's happening. That's what it's supposed to look like. And it's like that because the Father is working something in me. He's working something in those around me. I mean, I don't believe that Jesus just had him and the Father, and now he's going to tell the disciples everything that they're supposed to be and do. I think Jesus was also receiving revelation through the disciples of who he was as well. I think it was back and forth in everything, that Jesus was gleaning from everything to grow in wisdom, favor, and stature. And I think we can glean from everything. And if we can realize that even our failures in ministry are successes, once we flip them over and seen the purpose of what the Father was doing for our benefit, to bring us into a place of grace and ease, and out of our performance and out of our striving to measure up, we're going to benefit from that. And it's just going to be beautiful. So in closing, could you give just a little bit side to your journey, maybe some of the seasons that you've walked through that has unlocked even more of who you are, that you might have thought while you were in it was actually preventing you?
Yeah, of course. I remember when I was starting to walk with the Father uh, in awareness or intentionally, like I was going to these churches that where I felt like I wasn't allowed to minister, or there was no spot nor place for me, or places being already covered, so they didn't need extra guitarist or a singer or whatever. And I felt just left out or extra, like there is no place for me. But then I realized, like even this season was benefiting me, because I realized it wasn't I was the Father was actually deepening my intimacy or my connection with him. So even that was benefiting my calling of being the voice. But to be the voice, I needed to hear from the Father. So actually, the Father took away the people around me to glean from or to depend on in order to press in and to have a deeper relationship with him. So this season was, I think, the season of hiddenness, where he was just unveiling all the things that I was that I based my identity upon, or that I was, because before I came to Jesus or started to live in a relationship with him, I was a guitarist. I was a professional dancer, so I was really living from that applause, right, of people. Like I loved to do concerts, to play, or to dance, or whatever, and I was living from that. So I needed those people or that performance, even to keep going in a new environment of the church, in order for me to feel like my life has a sense. And then I burned out later on, and I thought, then I kind of like skipped from the season of like, hey, like I have enough of waiting, I have enough of being skipped, I have enough of not being recognized. Like, don't you see, like, how what a wonderful gift you have among you? And I
Yeah.
was just struggling, and I came to this another church, and I just skipped to another identity, kind of, that I could relate to an older brother from the parable about the prodigal son, or a reckless father. And I would be trying to impress the pastor and try to do everything possible to serve his vision, to wash the toilet, to set up the chairs, to sing, to preach, to encourage, to pray over people. Like everything that I could see on his eyes that is needed, I tried to do, just that he would recognize me. Finally, that I would finally step into my calling. And then I realized, like, some new people came to church, and they hadn't gone through the process that I went through, and they got the leadership position immediately. And I was so devastated, because I was like, I was working for this for such a long time, and these people didn't do a thing, and they just got it for free. And I just didn't understand what was going on. But I believe that through all these seasons, the Father was just surfacing my belief systems about what did I believe about myself, what did I believe about my calling, that I need to earn it in order to be it, that I need to do something in order to become someone. And I wasn't realizing that I have already been who the Father called me to be. I was it all the time, and it reminds me, for example, the life of David. He was called to be a king, but he would go through all these seasons of being a shepherd, like trying a different
Yeah.
identity than who he truly was, and then being hidden and being persecuted by Saul, and then
Yeah.
being hidden in caves and running away from the religious systems of the church that tried to define him or to remove him because he was too dangerous with his opinions, with his revelations, and I burned out. And then I came to the States, and it was funny because the father called me or invited me to come to ministry school, and I
Mhm.
was in a point of life when I didn't want to have with ministry anything anymore. So it was funny, like, I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah.
heal you, but actually you
Been
don't.
there.
You need you need to realize you don't need actually any healing. You are perfectly where you need to be, and I'm just gonna send you into a ministry school to minister a little bit more for you to realize who you truly are. But I was so thankful because in that year the father would help me to experience how does it look like to have a family around me? How does it look like to have a healthy church family or healthier? And it was like, the season of avoidance changed into a season of affirmation, father's affirmation. And everyone suddenly saw, like, oh, she's this or she's that. And let's just pull out from her and let's just give her a space uh, to do something and to express who she is or what she was called to do. And then another year came, and I was so looking forward, like, this is just the beginning. I'm gonna to make it. I'm finally gonna step into the ministry. And then suddenly the COVID came and everything was shut down, and I couldn't do a thing. Like, every time my spiritual father, he got like a disease of he needed to go through surgery. We were looking forward, like, we will perform, we will exercise these spiritual disciplines, build ourselves up, and everything was shut down. Like, we even weren't able to go to school. And my best friend asked me whether I would like to date, and suddenly everything became about family, and I didn't understand, like, but father, like, my calling is not about family, and what is going on? And then later on he would show me actually that family needs the voice of the father. Family needs the perspective from the father in that season. And we were, as the world, we were going through that season of COVID, and the families feeling lost and not knowing where they are at and losing the vision, losing the sense of direction. So they needed that prophetic perspective. And then as I slowly started to realize, like, everything happening in my life was perfectly aligned and perfectly helping me and preparing me to my calling. I was preparing the money to go for a mission trip to Uganda, Rwanda, and I was just contending and pressing in for all the finances to come in. And suddenly the COVID happened, and the mission trips were shut down, and the school was going through like a huge like a trauma. Like, it was so devastating, like, for people, because we were looking forward, we were expecting to go, we were fighting so hard for it to happen, and then suddenly, like, it just fell on the ground. But in that time,
Mhm.
I didn't know that in that context of trauma I would step into my calling, or into that manifestation or demonstration. And it was again aligned with the theme in my life of going through so much trauma. And in the context of trauma, I would rise up and would bring the voice of encouragement and what the father was saying in the middle of the trauma that the school was going through. And I felt like on the peak, like having a
Oh
mountain
yeah.
experience, and I was thriving. And isn't it written in the Bible that when the darkness will cover the nations, the glory of God will be upon you, and you will just rise up. And that's
That's
how
right.
I felt, like, in the middle of when things are not working, we actually, that can be a beautiful setup from the Father for us to rise up and to demonstrate His glory, demonstrate of who He is through us to others.
That's beautiful. And that's exactly, I totally relate to that, because it seemed like all the trauma I went through led me in the wrong motive to go into ministry. But then I'd go through these seasons that seemed traumatic that was actually healing the wrong perspective that came from trauma. It was like trauma was healing trauma. And I was getting smacked around too. And all these false expectations had to fall to the ground. But you came to the point where it was family. It was all about family anyway. So the Father was adding the heart of the element. And so, that's what it comes down to, is ministry is family. Ministry is being you wherever you're at. Ministry is simply being aware of the needs around you and meeting those needs and letting the Father meet your needs through them and through however he wants to do it. But in our sense, I'll say this, most people that if they've never stepped out and gone and done ministry like full time, like as a profession, it's not easy. People don't understand this. It's not just, oh, you get to sleep in, you get to pick your hours, you get to do what you love. There's a lot more involved there, because first and foremost, you're dealing with broken people, and broken people want to make you the scapegoat when they don't like what you have to say. Secondly, yes, God takes care of you and he provides, but what does he provide through? People. Okay. So one week you might have enough money to pay your bills. The next week you might not. So, it's really about reducing everything to the minimum and living your life for everyone else, and so there's pros and cons to that in our humanity, right? Our human thinking. And I love it. I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back. Obviously, I've tried. Secular work, I know what I'm getting paid. I know when I get off work, I can live however I want outside of my job. Ministry, nope, you can't. You're consistently the same person all the time, because you can't just take a break from your identity, because somebody's going to need you. And if you're not available, what are you in the ministry for? If you're not available for people, what are you in the ministry for? Okay. Period. It ain't about you when you're in the ministry. It's about everyone else. And so you really, that's going to become tested. Your true intention is going to become tested, because we all say it in the beginning. Yes, Father, for you, I'll lay my life down for everyone, until we meet that somebody that reminds us of this other somebody that hurt us way back when. And we're not going to, we'll lay our lives down for everybody but that person. And then God sends 20 people like them and says, no, you're going to lay your life down, not just for this person that you don't like, but 20 others that are just like them. And you're going, yeah, but they don't love me and they don't receive me and they don't hear me. Well, it ain't about hearing you. It's about you laying your life down. And so it becomes a point where your ego is crushed and reformed into the image of the mind of Christ. Once once your mind's been subdued through this process, and so this is what I tell people. Ministry, at least in this time and age, we want the lovey-dovey side. We want everything that feels great, instant miracles, instant answers prayer. Everybody loves us, and they will cry Hosanna, Hosanna when you come into town, and then they'll cry crucify you, crucify you. The crowds will change based on what is being emphasized in your life and in your mindset. Can you stand in that and not run, not hide, and not justify yourself and not protect yourself? Can you be Jesus? And so you learn to be as you walk through these things. But I'm just so grateful for your life and ministry, Barbara. We are so proud of you and what you carry in Slovakia, and how you've gone there and you've plowed ground that is really stuck in the 90s in some areas of, a lot of them aren't moving in some of the current stuff that we're moving in. I believe they're hidden there. They probably haven't come public because they don't want to get crucified, but there's still that overtone of that religious mindset, just like in America and in Canada and other places, and it seems to be rampant everywhere. We even have a dear friend of ours in the Philippines that's ministering a lot and has a ministry there. And They're dealing with the same religion there. It's mainly Catholic over there. Okay. And so there's just this dominating mainstream religiosity. And right now we feel like we're the minority. Okay. Because we're forerunning, we're pioneering something to help people step out of religiosity and into sonship. And it might seem hard. We might be in the heat of the day and only getting a penny, just like those that came at the last hour. But I truly believe that we're about to see a major increase, and we're already seeing it. Many are waking up, so it's very encouraging. Our labor is not in vain, and there are many out there that might be watching this right now that you are in a place where you quit your ministry because nothing was working out and nobody believed in you. Well, we're here to say that we believe in you, and keep putting your hand to the plow. Don't stop the vision. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to happen over timing and over years. So just be willing to put in the labor and believe in people and watch what the Father is going to do. Thank you so much, Barbara. I love you and appreciate you. And I can't wait. We might have to do a part 2 on this. It seems like we don't have enough time to get all out everything we want to share. But we just love everybody that's watching. And please go to Barbara's Facebook. Go to her website. Do you have a website, Barbara, that you can tell us what the website is?
I do, but it's actually only in Slovak language.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, go to her Facebook and check out what she's carrying, the information. You also do private coaching sessions and ministry and counseling and encounter sessions. So go check her out. I would encourage you. Her ministry is amazing. She is ordained beside, I don't like that word beside Father of Glory Global Ministries. So we have ordained her. We haven't given her anything she didn't already have. We've only confirmed who she's always been. And we totally believe in her. As soon as we saw this pearl of great price, we grabbed her and say, oh, we're going to cherish her. We're not going to let people walk on her. And so we got each other's back, and we just encourage you, check out her ministry. You can also check out our ministry at www.foggm.org. We've got a lot of material on there, audio and video, that's all free, that will bless you. And again, if you haven't got my book, you can go to Amazon, The Everlasting Gospel of Christ, an eternal perspective of an identity from an eternal perspective. Really powerful. It's going to bless your socks off. Well, I got to let you go. I got to run and go do a marriage counseling session. So I'm excited. And we also been doing shift sessions and counseling sessions, and we're getting ready. Real quick announcement: we will be in New York with Jackie Myers the first weekend in May, and so we're coming up to it. I believe. Let's see. I got to look at my calendar here. I think it's the 5th. Is it the 5th? Is that the time? The 5th, something like that. All the information is on our website. It is I believe it's the 6th, 7th, and 8th. It actually falls on Mother's Day as well. We did that last year. It was on Mother's Day. So come on down, mommies, and get totally filled. It's all good gathering, and we're going to be flowing on the goodness of God. It's going to be amazing. And then after that, the following weekend, we will be in Tennessee with Kay Fairchild, ministering with her the weekend of the 13th through the 15th. And you can find all that information on the website as well as Facebook. We love you guys. We appreciate all of those that support us, that sow into this ministry. And we just encourage you. The gas prices are really high, and we're needing some help to get around. So if you got a little extra and you want to help us out, you can give through the website. You can give through Messenger. It's all on PayPal, and we appreciate it. With these gas prices, it's literally $125 every 2 hours of driving is what it costs us to get on the road right now. Double the cost. Our normal yearly is about anywhere from $5,000 to $8,000 a year just in gas to travel to do ministry. And this year, we're looking at anywhere up to all the way up to $15,000. So we're believing for the increase. We know God's people are going to help us out because we know that you guys believe in us. We know it. And so I don't have to preach to the choir, right? I don't have to sit and pump you up and promise all these miracles if you give. I can promise you this. We will be blessed if you give. And if we are blessed, then we can go out and bless a whole bunch of people. And so we're just excited, and we're excited to be back on the road. And we're looking forward to a lot of stuff. We're going to be in Spokane area. We're going to Washington, Seattle area this summer. We're going to be in Texas in October, third weekend in October. We're working on that with Don Keithley at God's House and God's House Church in Houston. We're going to be in South Carolina for our annual Fam Bam. That's the third weekend in October. It's the second weekend in October. We'll be in Houston. So we've got a lot of things that are happening. We're going to be in a church in California in the Stockton area at a recovery church ministering on restoration of the mind. All kinds of places we're going. And so we're really excited, and we'll have more events popping up as we get closer to those time periods. But I just encourage everyone, let the Father lead you. Just be in the now, embrace the now, and embrace everything is from the hand of the Father, and keep an open mind to what the Father is revealing that you haven't yet seen. And always be available, not to look for an answer for yourself, but look for the answer of others by pouring out upon them. And you'll find that as you are answering others' questions, you will get the answer. Seek first the kingdom. Everything's added to you. I love you guys. I appreciate you. I love you, Barbara. We'll see you soon. Have a wonderful afternoon. God bless you. Bye-bye for now.